So tonight, AEW presents Blood and Guts, a special edition of Dynamite on TNT, and obviously the main event of tonight's show. It's not a one-match show, which was spoken about, wasn't it? This was a couple of weeks ago, because we've been building to this Blood and Guts edition of Dynamite, and specifically this Blood and Guts main event for a while now. But when it comes to the Blood and Guts show, there was all of this discussion, wasn't there, that this was going to be a one-match show. And you have to remember that Dynamite is 2 hours on TNT, right? It's 2 hours on TNT, and I know these, essentially, Blood and Guts, for those not aware, it's AEW's version of War Games. It's a War Games match. And yes, these War Games matches can last a long time, especially when you have the staggered entry into the match and actually waiting for the officially Blood and Guts to begin. Because I don't actually technically know. I don't know, unless they've fully revealed this. Have they actually fully revealed actually the rules as to what to expect? I don't know. Anyway, there was this discussion, wasn't there, previously, that tonight's Blood and Guts event was going to be a one-match show. It was just going to be the Blood and Guts main event between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle, and we were just going to, I don't know what people, when I heard that report, and I know I'm sort of going all over the place, we will get into like the match preview and actually discuss the storyline and all that kind of stuff, but it just, I remember when I saw this report the first time, I went, that's nuts, that no way that can be true. The report was that Blood and Guts was going to be a one-match show, and I remember looking at it at the time thinking, How? This main event could go half an hour, 45 minutes, probably 45 minutes, right? At a push, 45 minutes. And obviously that factors in, commercial time as well, right? So 45 minutes, but still you've got an hour and 15 to fill. So I remember looking at the report going, well, what? So we're going to have promos for an hour and 15? That's like an episode of Monday Night Raw. Surely we can't be doing that. It's crazy. So it's not. It's just it's a special edition of Dynamite, obviously, with this big Blood and Guts main event. This is what we're going to talk about here, is this Blood and Guts match between the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. Now, the Pinnacle have the man advantage in this one, and essentially by the man advantage it means throughout the match, because it's like War Games in the sense that two people will start from each team, and then after a certain time interval, one person will be added in from one team, and then the time will pass again, and then another person from the other team will be added in, until everyone gets involved in the match. And I believe the only way to win is by, pinfall, submission, or pinfall, or giving up, essentially. So that's the way to win the match. Those are the rules to the match. And this has been building a while. This has been really building a while. This has been building. Gosh, when did the MJF and Chris Jericho feud start? That started in October. I mean, they had the match at Full Gear. That was November, so probably a bit prior to then. So yeah, we're looking at sort of. I mean, even to be honest, MJF had the La Dina Debonair. When was that? That was that again. That's got to be October, September. So this has been building a really, really long time, and it's all been building to this. It's all been building towards this. Whether it's MJF defeating Jericho to be added to the Inner Circle, and then removing Sammy Guevara, and then starting his own faction, and all this kind of stuff. It's always been building to this. And I did a video, at least about a month or so ago, maybe a bit longer than that, saying that I felt that the direction this was going, and the moment we had MJF reveal that he had a faction of his own, which was the Pinnacle, FTR, Wardlow, Shawn Spears, Tully Blanchard, all that kind of stuff, the moment he revealed that he had a faction of his own, I went, well, this is going to Blood and Guts. That's where it's going. Because they wanted to do this match initially was over a year ago, wasn't it? Those infamous times, those infamous now cancelled, postponed shows. I don't even know the status of those shows anymore. Right before the pandemic truly hit and everything got shut down and everything was postponed and we had the empty arena shows and all that kind of stuff. We were heading towards Blood and Guts. The first mention of Blood and Guts we ever heard of was at AEW Revolution 2020. And the Blood and Guts name is kind of lost, I guess, on people now. But the Blood and Guts name is a Vince McMahon mannerism. It's a Vince McMahonism, because I was on an earnings call, a stockholders public earnings call, but I don't know what year. It must have been probably 2019 or early 2020, He was on this investors call, as they do, obviously quarterly with WWE, because they're a publicly traded company. And he was asked about AEW, and he said, we're not really paying attention to what they're doing. They just do blood and guts and all that kind of stuff. He used the phrase blood and guts because it was right after the Moxley and Omega match at Full Gear in 2019. This is how far back we're going. And then at AEW Revolution 2020, it was revealed that AEW were going to be doing a special version of Dynamite called Blood and Guts. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was a middle finger, if you will, to Vince McMahon to say, you want blood and guts, we'll give you blood and guts. And the initial match obviously was going to be the Inner Circle versus the Elite. And the cage was created and the match was booked, and it was going to take place on the edition of Dynamite from New Jersey. It was going to take place from the edition of Dynamite in New Jersey, and the week before that was scheduled to be Rochester, New York. And the plan was, obviously, in that Dynamite in Rochester, New York, you would have had Brody Lee make his debut as the Exalted One of the Dark Order in his hometown of Rochester, New York. You would also have had Matt Hardy make his AEW debut that night as well on Dynamite in Rochester, New York. And then the following week in New Jersey, we would have had Blood and Guts. And I believe, whose place was Matt Hardy going to take place of? Was it Adam Page? He was going to take the place. I think it was Adam Page. He was going to be a member of the Elite, and they were going to be facing off against the Inner Circle. And that was going to be the match. Obviously, the pandemic changed things, and they decided, obviously at the time of the pandemic as well, and this is important to sort of factor in, no one really knew what was going on at the time of the pandemic. It's a crazy time to look back on now. I mean, you could argue that even at this case now, there's still a lot of confusion when it comes to it. But especially at the time, obviously they couldn't do the match because it didn't look good, did it? And we didn't know what was going on with the pandemic at that time, and it sends really different mixed messages, really, doesn't it? You can't encourage an audience to stay at home and stay socially distant and then have 10 people in the ring all, mutilating themselves and being bloodied up and all that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, I know it's in the name, Blood and Guts, but there will be blood. There will be blood tonight for this match. There's no doubt about it. That's just what's going to happen. There will be blood for this one. It will be nasty, and it will be brutal. It will be vicious. It will be violent. It will be... I don't want to be one of those people, it's going to be everything that the WWE's version of War Games isn't and all that kind of stuff. You know what you're getting yourself into with the WWE's version of War Game. We're not going to get blood. We're not going to get the violence that maybe this match deserves. We're going to get that tonight on Dynamite. If you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into the proverbial blood and guts, that's what we're going to get in this match. And that's exciting. I think that is exciting. I grew up watching pro wrestling when... if you had a Hell in a Cell match, or you had those kind of matches, Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber, you knew it was going to be a bloodbath. And I think it adds to it. It adds to just feeling like a big-time match, making moments, making it feel gritty, making it feel real. And I think that's what we're going to get in this one. So that's really, really exciting. So obviously they've wanted to do this match for a long time. They've had the set built for, or the cages built for well over a year at this point. And it's an interesting point as well that I do want to point out is that we're obviously going to have fans in attendance tonight on TNT for Dynamite Blood and Guts, but this is going to be the largest crowd that AEW have done since the pandemic first hit last year. We spoke about the first few shows after the pandemic hit when it comes to AEW, but this is going to be their biggest show that they've done in terms of a capacity crowd since then. Obviously, they've had fans in for Dynamite for a while now. They moved things around for Revolution back in March, and they had a larger capacity then. But tonight we're going to get an even bigger crowd. There are reports it's actually going to be like 50% capacity tonight in Daly's Place, which is around 2,500 fans. I think it holds like 5,500, something like that. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge arena. It's more of an amphitheatre, really, isn't it, the way it's set up? You don't really get surround. You get sort of... it's almost old-fashioned in a sense. It's a bit like some of the theatres you have over here in the United Kingdom. Like I said, it's almost like an amphitheatre, that kind of setup. So there's rumours that it's going to be about 50% capacity for tonight's show. So we're going to have a good atmosphere, which again I think is going to make it an even more kick-ass event. There are obviously, the announcement was made today as well by Tony Khan when it comes to Double or Nothing in May, later this month rather, that's going to be 100% capacity in Daly's Place. We're going to have 5,500 people there for Double or Nothing in Daly's Place. That's exciting. That is very exciting. Now, I don't want to be one of those people that's a hypocrite. I was critical for UFC for doing it in Jacksonville, Florida, when they had 15,000 fans in attendance inside an arena. I think it's slightly different with Daily's Place. I do. We're moving towards the space now where events, sporting events, musical events, concerts, stuff like that, they're starting to be put on, even if it's in a socially distanced setting, or if not, if it's outdoors, obviously it's better. And there's going to be obviously mandates in place, wear mask, temperature checks, all that kind of stuff, hand sanitizing. There might be I don't think this is going to be the case for Double or Nothing, but there is going to be obviously discussions in the future about, you know, proof of vaccine and all that kind of stuff. So we're moving back towards having fans in attendance, and I'm not going to be one of those people that was like, oh no, you know, it's terrible. My thing with that's always just been caution. As long as there's caution, as long as it's done as safely as possible, and people know what they're getting themselves in for, and they know that they've been vaccinated or they're willing to take the risk and sign something to that effect. This is the new normal. This is the world we're going into. So my point being is that in addition to having this great main event tonight, we're also going to have a really good atmosphere. I think a really strong atmosphere, which is only going to add to this match. It really is only going to add to this match. So that's very exciting as well. As far as the people involved, this is kind of where this is maybe a bit of a hot take. This is what people, I guess, would call it. The Pinnacle faction, I just don't know if I'm really feeling it. And maybe I'm in the minority with that one, I don't know. But I'm just not... I don't know. I don't see it, if that makes sense. I don't see... What's the common thread here? Tully Blanchard, maybe? I think Shawn Spears being in it, no disrespect to the guy, but I think that's ridiculous, to be honest. I'm not one of those people that's going to just completely trash on Cody Rhodes and all that kind of stuff. But Shawn Spears, I mean, they have desperately tried to get this guy over and to make him feel like a big deal in the AEW landscape. And to be honest, it just hasn't worked. I mean, they have thrown so many different gimmicks at the wall and tried to see what stuck. And nothing really has. Whether it's turning on Cody Rhodes, hitting him with the chair. Now he's the chairman, right? Because he hit him with a chair, so he's the chairman. And he walks to the ring with a chair, and his entrance has a chair and all that kind of stuff. That didn't work. Okay, we'll put him with Tully Blanchard. Put him with Tully. Tully's great. I'm a huge fan of the Horsemen. I'm a huge fan of Tully Blanchard. I'm a huge fan of the Brainbusters. Tully Blanchard is one hell of a promo. I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. Tully Blanchard's a great talker, but even Tully, as great as he is, he's like, oh, I'm trying. That didn't work, so what do we do? It's like WWE. He's just missing something. He's just missing the gimmick. So what do? They give him another gimmick. He's got the black glove. He's like Ted DiBiase and the Blackjacks. They try the black glove. That doesn't work to get him over. And it's kind of like, oh, what have we got now? And now he's in this faction. I think the only reason he's in this faction, again, not wanting to sound disrespectful, but I think the only reason he's in this faction is because if push comes to shove at some points when they need someone to take a pinfall, it's going to be Shawn Spears. That's the only reason, because I don't want to see FTR taking so many pinfalls. But certainly MJF isn't going to be taking any. I'd rather Wardlow didn't. I think he's got a tremendous upside. So Shawn Spears is in there to be the guy that takes pinfalls if necessary. And I think that's the reason why. Again, I just... This faction, the Pinnacle, I like the name. On recent episodes of Dynamite, they've tried, in fairness to them, they've tried hard to sort of portray that this is a close-knit group and all this kind of stuff. I look at the group and I say, well, why are they together? What's their common goal? What's their common purpose? With the Inner Circle, you know what it is. This is Jericho's Inner Circle. It's in the name. And Jericho's got his bodyguards. He's trying to get over a tag team. He's trying to get over an up-and-comer. And he brought these guys into AEW, if you will, and their aim was to take it over from the start. Now, you could argue maybe the Pinnacle does the same. I don't see the common thread. I don't see the common thread in the Pinnacle. But nevertheless, I must say that I think the Pinnacle wins tonight. I mean, they have to. If they've got any future as a faction in AEW, they have to win tonight, right? Otherwise, they're dead in the water. You can't have your first big match as a faction and have you lose it, because you have to win. Otherwise, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point of why I don't understand this faction that much, because maybe they're not built to last. Maybe they're not built for the future, and maybe this faction is just going to disappear. relatively soon after this Blood and Guts match. Because what's fascinating about this one is that, like I said, you would think the Pinnacle has to win, because if they don't, they're done. They're done as a faction, and they might as well just split up because they'll have no momentum. On the flip side of things, if you look at the way this storyline has been laid out, you would think maybe the Inner Circle wins, because traditional wrestling storytelling would say that eventually, most times, not all the time, but most of the time, the baby faces, get the victory, or the baby faces come out on top in the end, right? That's how that stuff tends to work. And when it comes to the Inner Circle in this feud haven't exactly been winning that much. Jericho lost in the first place. That's how MJF was added to the group. And then MJF tried to manipulate the whole group. He tried to get rid of Sammy Guevara. Eventually, he tried to get rid of Chris Jericho. He outsmarted Chris Jericho. He made Chris Jericho look like a fool and all that kind of stuff. And now this whole storyline's now turned to Jericho trying to get his own back, and the Inner Circle trying to get his own back because MJF tried to destroy the faction. He tried to destroy the family and all that kind of stuff. That's the point of this. That's the point of this feud. So what happens if MJF wins? The Pinnacle wins. It just, I don't know. The Inner Circle doesn't look great after that point, do they? It's sort of like the bad guy won. The bad guy came out on top, and the bad guy proved that this faction isn't good anymore. I don't know. Again, that's very odd too. So that's why this one's quite difficult to predict, to be honest. It's difficult to predict in the sense that the Pinnacle, I think, needs to win to establish themselves as a faction. But as a faction, I don't see the common thread there. The Inner Circle, you would think, in terms of storyline, it's set up for them to win, but I don't think they will win. So it's very unconventional. And also, as I mentioned, we know Double or Nothing is on the horizon, and it's one of AEW's pillar events, one of their biggest events of the year. Certainly is going to be one of their biggest events for a long, long time because of the capacity attendance. And it makes you wonder, are they setting up something for Chris Jericho or MJF at Double or Nothing? Because I don't think Jericho and MJF are going to face off at Double or Nothing, because we've seen it before. We saw it at Full Gear. So if this is the blow-off match for the feud, where does MJF and Chris Jericho go after that? That's an interesting one as well. Does Jericho have the previously rumored match against Mike Tyson? Or does he have a match, say, against someone in the Inner Circle, like a Sammy Guevara or something like that? That's a possibility. Because remember, the only way to win this one is by pinfall or forfeit or giving up. And maybe this is a situation where, maybe AEW would do something like this. It feels very Vince Russo-ish to say this, but maybe they'll see a situation where, I don't know, Chris Jericho turns on the Inner Circle. I don't know if Jericho would do that, but his work is best as a heel in AEW, and at the moment, the Inner Circle are babyfaces. Maybe Jericho goes, you know what, I don't need you guys anymore, and leaves. I don't know if that's the best finish. I think an interesting finish is Sammy Guevara turning on Chris Jericho. I'm not necessarily sure of Sammy Guevara joining the Pinnacle, but Sammy Guevara turning on Chris Jericho. You would think if you're Sammy Guevara, and if you're writing this storyline, there would be reason for Sammy Guevara to turn on Chris Jericho. There would be. And that reason would be is that Jericho never believed him. The whole time that Guevara was saying that MJF was bad, and he was trying to point out that MJF was trying to destroy the Inner Circle, Chris Jericho didn't believe him. It got so bad that Sammy Guevara had to leave the Inner Circle. And eventually he came back, and he was proved to be right about MJF and all that kind of stuff. But maybe ever since Sammy Guevara came back, maybe he's realized, you know what? I'm going to come back, but I'm going to get my revenge on Chris Jericho. I could do it straight away, and I could never come back, or I could out-manipulate one of the greatest manipulators in all time in Chris Jericho. And I think that would kind of be a reasonably iconic finish to this one, right? It would be a pretty iconic finish in the sense that it looks like the Inner Circle are going to win. Finally, you have, say, I don't know, you've got Chris Jericho and his bat Floyd. You've got MJF, he's on his knees in the ring. He's praying, please, Chris, don't. I'm sorry. And then you've got Jericho. He goes, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hit you with the bat. I want to give the bat to the guy that you did try to screw over and you tried to turn against me, and gives it to Sammy Guevara. And it looks like Sammy Guevara is just going to hit MJF, and then he doesn't. He smiles, he turns around and just smacks Chris Jericho with Floyd. Absolutely annihilates him. And then you realize that Sammy Guevara went, yeah, when you didn't believe me and you kicked me out of the group and I was banished, I didn't forget about that. I didn't forget about that, and I planned it. I planned this moment, and I tell you what, it feels damn great that I've finally been able to pull it off. And then you've got this unbelievable moment. We then transition into a Guevara versus Chris Jericho feud at Double or Nothing. And then that can last to maybe All Out as well. And you're establishing a new star in Sammy Guevara. You're elevating him up to the main event level as a single star, which eventually is where he's going to get to. So that's very interesting as well. So I'm very excited. We will be doing a watch along for it live. So be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for tonight's stream. It's very exciting. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts and predictions for this Blood and Guts match tonight on Dynamite? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.